What up, though? Welcome back to the Beat Factory 313 War Stories podcast, and I'm your host, Juice. And I got a good one with you, one of my brother mans. Let them know who we got with us today, Mobite.
Islam. This is Hardy Bay, also known as Reginald Hardy Jr., Reggie Hardy Bay. And
Islam.
I got my young brother here pulled me up, pulled me out of the mud today. And I wanted to holler at a few of as many of my young ones, all those who have an ear to hear. And as we stand at this moment, I'm right now doing a natural life bit for first degree felony murder. Now let me take you short and quick and make a summary for you. In
Speak up.
1983, I went on a ride.
Speak up me too, Mobite.
What? Speak up?
Yeah, speak up, please. I ain't mean to interrupt you. Speak up a little bit.
Okay. Now, in 1983, I went on a ride with a couple of brothers, and during this ride, some nonsense came about where the car ran out of gas. When the car ran out of gas, one of the brothers had a pistol. And when they seen a man coming across the parking lot, if you all from Detroit and listening and know these areas, we was right at Somerset Mall on Coolidge and Big Beaver. Guy coming out the parking lot, I'm finna pay this guy to take us to get some gas. Now, all the time, I don't know my man is feeling like he feeling with this strap. So I'm parking the car, and they supposed to go ask the guy to come with me to go get some gas. Next thing I know, I hear everybody hollering my name, Buster, Buster, Buster. So I park the car, get out the car, and go over to the spot where they at. And the guy who they supposed to ask to go get some gas, he's got a pistol in his hand. Not knowing what had happened or who's doing what, I see him fingering the gun trying to get off of ground, and he don't know how to do it. That's where I come in. I lay one on him. He dropped the gun. My man pick it back up, and here we go. So once this thing happened, and all caution get thrown to the wind, you get caught up in the revelry of self-preservation and survival. Now it's all about, we got to get away with this situation. We get in the car. I'm driving. All of a sudden, the guys with me don't know how to drive a stick. So I got to drive because I know how to drive a stick. The guys in the back seat hollering and screaming. And I tell the guy, be quiet. Don't worry about it. Nobody's finna hurt you or tear up your car. We need to go get some gas and you will be good. A little bit down Coolidge Road, which is Schaefer, the guy gets to hollering and screaming, and my man turned around and say, didn't he tell you to shut up? Ah! And hit him. I'm driving this car and I'm shaking my head and I'm like, no, I know this. No. Nah. At the time, I was 19 years old. As we continue to drive toward Detroit, my man hit him again. Now it's time to do what you think you're supposed to do when it's time to get rid of a body. But come to find out, the guy wasn't dead. Long story short, the guy come up out of the spot where he was dropped off, which was a sewer, a storm drain. And he go to somebody's house, they call the ambulance, he go down to the hospital, Detroit receiving, they repair him, they hook him up, fix him up, get him back right. Now the person who pulled this particular trigger on this particular night, he got caught that night.
Mm-hmm.
When they called my name to come over to the car, it was because the guy who became the victim of this crime, remember, whenever there's a crime committed such as this, you got to think about there's a victim and there's the people who's connected to the victim. Now, to put it plainly, to make it human and a little less animalistic, the victim's name was Jeffrey Dudley. He was a young man, just like me. So he's more than a victim. Now, the trigger man, he runs, they follow the trail of blood. When I got to the spot, when they was calling me, the victim had shot the guy who was with me. So while we was riding, I'm asking him what's wrong with him, what he moaning for. He say, oh man, he shot me. You know, he was using a few expletives with his language. Of course, he was cussing. And I said, don't worry about it. It look like a flesh wound. We be straight. We get back to the crib. You be all right. So eventually, after he popped the guy a couple times, dropped the guy off, we head back to the city. And the police pull up behind us because we ain't got our lights on. We got fogs on, just the fog lights. So when the police pull up behind us, me being an ex-car thief as a juvenile, as a young boy, I was a hell of a driving man. So I outrun the police. While I'm outrunning the police, my two partners, they jump out and run. This is when the police followed the trail of blood to the guy who did the shooting, the actual shooting. Now, I'm on the run from that day on for nearly 2 years. Now, in these 2 years, I did everything you could possibly do when it comes to the alleys, the byways, the highways of the street. I was on the run. I was living underground. I was going from basement to house to car to hotel, eventually to different states. Now, while I went to these different states, I ended up in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, by way of a small town called Gaston, Alabama. When I get there, I was selling everything you could sell. At the time, this was a town that dealt with only pills. Just so happened, I had a hell of a connect with those particular pills and received an insatiable, unending supply. Long story short, I get knocked off down there with the pills and go to the county jail in Gaston, Alabama. And the captain of the police department introduced me to a lawyer when he found out that I could possibly be his success story playing football. I was 6'8", 280 pounds, 19 years old, in shape, and I played ball all my life.
Right.
In Detroit, Murray Wright, Osborne, you know. And when he introduced me to this lawyer, their only concern was, could I play? All I was trying to figure out was how I was going to get out this jail before they run my prints and find out I'm a fugitive from Michigan.
Right.
So in the next 2 days, I give them a story that you could make a movie out of. And at the end of that story, the captain of the narcotics says, if I was you, son, I'd have did the same thing. He say, now, could you write that down for me? And that was my first state of panic because I didn't realize how I was going to write down all this stuff I was making up as I was going.
Right.
So
you doing the Kaiser Soze,
next thing you know, yeah, man, I was coming off the cuff. You know, so
you have 1 minute remaining.
So what they do next? They take a picture of me, and 2 days later, I get out of jail, and they take me to an apartment. Got me an apartment. You know, I got a car that I already had, and they took me to a nickel plating plant and gave me a job. Straight slave labor. You know, digging ditches, driving dump trucks, doing everything you could possibly do. And
Call back when they hang up.
wait,
Call
you
back.
huh?
Call back when they hang up.
Okay, yeah. And around that time, I'll meet Ray Perkins, the head coach of the University of Alabama. And they still trying to figure out who I am, where I come from. But all they really concerned about is, can I play ball? Can I help them win a game? So I'm still lying. I'm under an alias. And they starting to look me up. But they coming up with dead ends because my name don't register.
Right.
Thank you.
And I meet Ray Perkins. All they concerned about is me helping them win. So once they started tracking what it was and my history in the game, they came up with dead ends because I was under an alias. Now all this time, I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna stay free, how I'm gonna not, how am I gonna avoid jail, how am I gonna not get back to Michigan and family, etc., etc. So my mother is telling me every time I call home and check in, son, you must trust somebody. You gotta trust somebody. And she said, sound like this person who's trying to get you in school might be somebody you can trust. Now, this person that was trying to get me in school was a lawyer named James Hedspeth. This particular lawyer, as well as this captain of the police department, they were alumni from the University of Alabama. And if you know anything about college towns, the head coach at a college town and the lawyers and the alumni and the boosters who put the money behind the programs are bigger than the president in this little area, in this particular circle.
Right.
So once that happened, they was doing everything they was doing for me. You know, I'm trying to acquire any kind of ID under the alias name I got so I can solidify my identity, which is false.
Right.
So I come to the lawyer office one day after work. You know, he got the house that he got me, the apartment that he got me was about a quarter of a mile from his office. And he always implored me to stop by on the way home, anytime, all the time. So I come by this particular afternoon and he say, listen, man, he say, who are you really? I say, what you mean? He said, I called Murray Wright. I called Osborne, the schools you said you went to in Detroit. They don't know who you are. He said, I'm going to give you one chance to tell me who you are. And then I'm going to have to call the captain. He said, you decide if you want to tell me the truth or not. Or you can turn around, walk out of here, and leave here and never look back, and I act like I never seen you. He said, let me know at 4 o'clock. So I came back at 4 o'clock. And I said, man, I want the opportunity to go to school and play some ball. The captain came out the back office. He said, I knew you was going to make the choice to do the right thing. I said, everything I told you was true. I told him about my father, who was Reginald Harding, played for the Detroit Pistons. I told him about my life, my juvenile life, how I came out to be in Alabama, doing the wrong thing because I was on the run from a crazy mishap of a crime. And then I told him my name. So he said, sit down. And he called the places again. He called Murray Wright. He called Osborne again. Each time he talked to the coaches that was there. And when he gave them my name this time, they said, yeah, I know Reggie. He was one of the best linemen, one of the best players I ever had, this, that, and the other, et cetera, et cetera. He said, yeah, he played a good game. He played a violent game of football. His game was real intense, real aggressive. He said, what's up? He said, well, I got him right here. And I'm trying to get him in school. I'm trying to get him in the University of Alabama to play some ball for us. And man, the coach and the secretary in the office, they cried. Oh, Reggie, how you doing? oh my God, we seen you on the news, we seen this, that, and the other, because I was all over the news in Detroit
Right.
in the summer of 83, 84 is when this happened. So, long story short, they found out who I was, and I no longer had to hide. They signed a $100,000 fugitive from justice bond and got me out of jail free and clear. So I'm working every day, and we go down to University of Alabama for the weekend, and I passed the ACT and SAT, and Coach Ray Perkins and Rocky Falker, who was the offensive coordinator, they gave me a workout plan, and I was accepted at the school and was supposed to report to practice August 15th, 1984, with the varsity squad. July 2nd, nipped that in the bud, and the police came down to the plant I was working at and arrested me. And even a few days later, flew me back to Michigan, extradited me back to Michigan. And I've been locked up ever since. That was 41 years ago.
Man. And so what?
So that's the brief. That's the short version.
Right.
And it's a long road home, man, when you come to prison. And they gave me 20 to 60 years for that particular crime. But a strange twist in fate happened. And 4 years and some change later, the young brother Jeffrey Dudley, he was the victim of this crime. Due to complications from the bullet wound he sustained that night, he died of congested heart failure due to the bullet wound 4 years later. And they took me and my rappy back and charged us with first-degree felony murder. And we received a mandatory sentence, which was life without the possibility of parole.
What?
And yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's how it happened, Juice.
You saying
that's how your man up in here.
You saying 4 years later they came back?
4 years and a month, 4 years and some change later, they came back.
So hold on. He had been living. He wasn't in the hospital these 4 years. He had been living his life for them 4 years.
Well, he was living his life. He was living with some difficulties and some limitations because he had a scar tissue on the heart ventricle from the bullet wound he sustained.
Okay.
So he was living bad. You know, he made a baby. He was working. He was trying to do better and be better. But he was 19 and he didn't know how to live like an old man.
Right.
So, not to put nothing on him, but one day he was playing basketball with his brother, playing against his two brother-in-laws. And they was playing in 80-degree weather, hot summer day. They was in the backyard, gambling, playing a little game for a little wager. And he had to stop a couple of times to rest. But immediately after the game, he got into a fight with his brother-in-law. He thought his little brother-in-law smacked his sister, who was his wife.
Right.
So they commenced a fight. They get into a fight. They scuffling, they bucking, and during the fight, the young brother go into convulsions, and they rush him down to the hospital, and he don't make it. He expired. He died. So the prosecution being Oakland County, Brooks Patterson, L. Brooks Patterson, and his assistants, they brought me and my co-defendant back, re-indicted us. I'm on the prison yard in 4 Block in Jackson State Prison. And one of the fellas bring me the newspaper. He say, Buster, look, you've been indicted for murder. I said, what? That's how I found out about it, Juice.
Man.
So I'm looking at the paper and I get excited because how they gonna charge me with murder a different crime, a different charge of an elevated status, and I'm sitting here in the prison yard, I haven't killed nobody.
Right.
So now I know from doing my law work and fighting this case from day one, which had been 4 years now, if they bring me back and retry me and I'm still in prison, they commit double jeopardy.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I'm excited. I'm ready to go to court because now they done charged me with a crime. Once they come with the indictment and formally charge me, double jeopardy is hereby attached.
Exactly.
Protection of the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Right.
So I get down to the county jail, and what they come up with, what the law says, if there's one element different in the crime or the offense that wasn't in the first crime or offense, if there's one different element, then it's a different crime and it could be a new charge and a different charge. So they didn't honor double jeopardy, even though it stayed live in court. I appealed from 1988 to 2010. That double jeopardy issue was live in the court and went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, Sixth Circuit. And that's the way they stretched that one out. And that's why I'm here now with a life without parole sentence. But God is good. God is great. And I had some things to pay for. I got 40 in. 41 to be exact, in a couple more months. It won't happen in your time, but it's going to happen in our lives' time. And I always said he was saving me and preserving me and keeping me healthy and sane for a reason. He introduced me to a little man, a holy prophet named Noble Drew Ali, that saved my life. And in the meantime, in between time, it brought me to a state of consciousness and a state of well-being to where empathy was never a problem for me. My statement of allocution, the day I was sentenced to life, I profusely apologized to the boy's father, family, brother, his wife, his newborn child. I'm coming to prison for life, as far as I know, right?
Right.
So I have no reason to try to say anything to impress the court, because I'm getting a mandatory sentence where the court has no discretion.
Right.
So the mandatory sentence is automatic, life without the possibility of parole. But I express my regard to the family about the pain I know they feel that I could never understand and wouldn't try to. And I apologize 1,000 times. And I told the father, I say, sir, I know you hate me right now. I say, but if you smacked me, I would take that. I say, because there's no amount of sorries or apologies that I can give you that'll bring your son back or that could ease your pain. And I said, I too have lost someone who I care for dearly to senseless violence. And that was my father. You know, see, my father was taken on the streets of Detroit, the gangster way. He took 2 to the head.
Get out of here. Can you tell us a little?
On the east side of Detroit, on Kercheval and Parkview. You know,
my condolences.
These things, one doesn't negate the other. You know what I'm saying? But it's a hard road travel, and you don't humble up and come to prison, man. You get here by design. You know, so
you have 1 minute remaining.
I had to earn my bones. I had to own my shit, and hold myself accountable and be a responsible man and do what it is I had to do. And even though it was the worst thing in the world, it saved me in more ways than one.
Alhamdulillah.
And by the grace of Allah, I'll be back out there shortly due to legislation and changes in the law.
Inshallah.
You know, since I was 19 and they raising the age of juveniles with natural life without the possibility of parole being unconstitutional and cruel and unusual punishment. And it'll soon be 19 and 20-year-olds to go with 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. So I'll be out there to give back for the things that I took. And no matter how much I give back, I could never give back enough for the damage that I did.
Thank you for using GTL.
I'm glad y'all tuned in, and I hope y'all enjoyed this. That was Reggie. That was Reggie Harding. He told y'all his story. His daddy used to play for the Detroit Pistons, and he himself was murdered back in 72. Hit that, excuse me. Hit that like, comment, and subscribe. Tune in. I got some exclusives coming for y'all. I ain't even gonna tell y'all what it is yet. But y'all don't want to miss it. And remember, the streets ain't what it is. It's 1,000,001 urban stories. It's 1,000,001 stories in the urban community. This is just another one. Stay tuned for many more that's to come. And I will be touching back with y'all. Hit that like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm out.
When I got back to the as I appealed my case, when I got to the Michigan Supreme Court, I got acquitted of the firearm. So I got acquitted because the victim of the crime, who was the only witness, he said the big man never had a pistol. He never possessed a gun. All he did was hit me in the mouth and drive the car. And that's exactly what I did.
Right.
And I never made no qualms or never tried to say that I didn't do that. I've always owned my part in the wrong that I did, which is why I think Allah showed me love and mercy along the way. You know, I could tell you some horror stories about prison life, of course.
Right.
And 41 years is more than half of my lifetime. That's a third. You know, I'm 61 and I've been locked up since I was 19.
Man, that's wild.
It's amazing how they took us back, man, and they was taking a gamble. And a lot of people, a lot of officers of the judicial arena, police, lawyers, judges, the Michigan Supreme Court Justice Patricia Boyle, she told the prosecution on my appeal, why are you even bringing this man back? He already have more than enough time as it is. Even though this woman made that statement, my sister sat in on the hearing, and she said Patricia Boyle upbraided this man so vividly that she thought they was finna call me and release me from prison that day.
Oh, for
but
real?
She didn't know how the system worked.
Right.
Even though Patricia Boyle said what she said, they still voted against me 5-2. And Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Levin said they dissented. In other words, they agreed with our argument that the boy had a lot of responsibility to do with his own death, and that I possibly couldn't have killed him from the prison yard. And that if he wouldn't have played basketball and got into that fight, which is what they call intervening cause, if he would have followed the doctor's orders, you know, even though it was hard for a young man to do, you know how you are when you're 19, you don't know how to be slow.
Right.
But if he would have followed the doctor's orders, he may have lived longer. But even if he did, whenever he would have died, if it had anything to do with his heart, they was bringing me back if I was still alive. They was going to retry me for his murder. And that's what they did.
What the law state on that? Why is that, though? How is that?
Well, the law states that even though it's one offense, it's one crime, in the first offense, if there's any small thing different in the second offense, then it's a different crime. And it can't be double jeopardy. So they said that even though he was shot in 1983, when he passed away in 1987, the different element was his heart and his actual cause of death. And the different element was in 83 he was shot, but in 87, you understand, he had a heart attack. But the heart attack was a direct cause, according to the autopsy.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Direct cause from the bullet wound.
Do you think
You have 60 seconds
do you
remaining.
do you think Albert Pradesh and them was just trying to avoid charging his people for it?
Oh, man, hey, you and a lot of others, that's a very comprehensive question, bro. And it was people that used this crime as well as another very prolific crime of a friend of ours to elevate their political and means of employment. It was a boost of their career to get these particular cases. They were very high profile cases. And they did what you call selective prosecution, malicious and selective prosecution. That's what it was.
Man.
You know. Yeah, it became political, man. It really did. You know.
You got to come back and share more.
Yeah, I will, man. I will. Whenever you.
Thank you for using GTL.
And now I'm out. Peace.
And not even about me. You all had an opportunity to have access to the office because this is who I laid down with every night. So he made sure we didn't get it wrong in that office. And it spread and permeated across this country when I was able to tell the real world and the real experiences that when people are treated like animals and savages, then you justify how you treat them. No, every person who goes through the system is a human being, and what I'm here to tell you is that you will be treated like human beings from across this world.
Talk that talk. Talk that talk. Talk that talk.
On behalf of every prosecutor across this country, I apologize for the mistreatment, for the abuse, all the things that have been through. I am with you to end the mass incarceration, to